I moved into the apartment because it was cheap, quiet, and far enough from everything that reminded me of Ryan. At least, that's what I told myself. The truth was simpler and more uncomfortable. I needed a place where no one knew me, where I could pretend my relationship wasn't slowly dissolving into missed calls and unread messages. Ryan and I had been together for almost 2 years, but for the last 6 months, we'd been living in different cities. At first, we promised daily calls, weekend visits, plans for the future. Then life happened, his job became demanding, my schedule unpredictable, and somewhere in between, affection turned into obligation. Our conversations felt scripted, like we were both reciting lines from a relationship we no longer fully believed in. That evening, I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, when my phone buzzed. Mark, landlord. Hey Ethan, I need to inspect your room tomorrow. Routine check. Is 6 p.m. okay? I hesitated before replying. I had met Mark only once, the day I signed the lease. He was polite, well-spoken, and unexpectedly calm for someone who owned half the building. There was something about him that felt grounded. The kind of person who made you feel less chaotic just by standing near him. Yeah, that's fine. The next day passed slowly. Ryan didn't call. He sent a short message around noon, busy today, talk later, and that was it. I told myself not to overthink it, but loneliness has a way of amplifying silence. At exactly 6, there was a knock on my door. Mark stood in the hallway, holding a small clipboard. He was taller than I remembered, wearing a simple black jacket, his expression neutral but warm. Hey, Ethan. Sorry to bother you in the evening, he said. It's okay, I replied, stepping aside. Come in. He walked around the room slowly, checking the windows, the walls, the ceiling. The inspection was clearly not urgent, but neither of us seemed in a hurry to end it. You've settled in well, he said. Most tenants complain about the noise or the space. I like it, I said. It's quiet. Mark smiled faintly. Sometimes quiet is exactly what we're looking for. There was a pause. Not awkward, just heavy. The kind that invites conversation if you're brave enough to step into it. So, are you from around here? He asked. No. I moved for work. And personal reasons. He didn't press, which somehow made me want to explain more. Long-distance relationship, I added, surprising myself. Not really going great. Mark nodded slowly, like he understood more than I'd said. Those are harder than people admit. Yeah. You spend most of your time missing someone who isn't really missing you the same way anymore. The words slipped out before I could stop them. I waited for him to respond with something polite or dismissive. Instead, he said, that's a painful place to be. I looked at him then, really looked at him. His voice wasn't sympathetic in a rehearsed way, it was personal, as if he'd stood in that same emotional space before. You sound like you've been there, I said. More than once, he replied. The lights flickered suddenly. Once. Twice. Then the room went dark. Great, I muttered. Perfect timing. Mark chuckled softly. Power cuts happen sometimes. Should be back in a few minutes. We stood there in the dim light from the hallway, neither of us moving toward the door. You don't have to stay, I said. I mean, the inspection is basically done. I don't mind waiting, he replied. Unless you want me to go. I didn't. That realization startled me. We sat on opposite sides of the room, talking about small things, his job, my work, how strange it felt to live alone for the first time. The conversation felt effortless, like it didn't require me to perform or impress. My phone buzzed again. A message from Ryan. Ryan, can't talk tonight. Exhausted. Tomorrow? I stared at the screen longer than necessary. You okay? Mark asked. Yeah, I lied. Just relationship stuff. He hesitated, then said quietly, are you really happy with him? The question landed heavier than it should have. It wasn't accusatory. It wasn't invasive. It was honest. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. In the silence, the power came back on. The room filled with light again, but something between us had shifted. I felt exposed, like a part of me had been seen without my permission, and without my resistance. Mark stood up, clearing his throat. Well, everything looks fine here. I'll let you get back to your evening. Yeah, I said. Thanks. He walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, he said, not turning around, you deserve to feel chosen. Not just remembered. Then he left and I stood there alone, my phone still in my hand, Ryan's message unread. For the first time in months, the problem wasn't that I felt lonely. It was that I didn't want to be anymore, and I wasn't sure who I wanted that feeling with. After that night, I told myself I wouldn't think about Mark again. That I wouldn't replay his words, his voice, the way he had looked at me, as if my feelings were not an inconvenience but something that deserved space. I convinced myself it had been nothing more than a moment of emotional honesty between two strangers, but moments like that don't disappear. They linger. They reshape the silence. A week passed. Ryan and I spoke twice, both times briefly, both times distracted. Our conversations felt like we were maintaining a routine rather than a relationship. We talked about work, about being tired, about plans we never finalized. He didn't ask how I was doing. I didn't tell him. On Thursday evening, there was another knock on my door. I knew it was Mark before I opened it. Hey, he said, holding a small envelope. Your mail was delivered to my office by mistake. Oh. Thanks, I replied, trying to sound normal. He lingered in the doorway, clearly debating whether to leave or stay. You doing okay? He asked. The question was simple, but it felt loaded. I could have lied again. I could have said I was fine. Instead, I stepped aside. Do you want to come in? He nodded and walked in slowly, like he didn't want to assume he was welcome. The room felt smaller with him there, not in a suffocating way, but in an intimate one. Like the space had suddenly become aware of both of us. We sat across from each other, the same way we had before. I've been thinking about what you said, I admitted. About deserving to feel chosen. Mark looked at me carefully. And I don't know if I do. At least not by Ryan. He didn't smile. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. I think I've been pretending we're still something we used to be, I continued. But lately, I feel like I'm the only one trying to keep it alive. That's exhausting, Mark said quietly. It is. And the worst part is, I don't even blame him. People grow. They change. I just didn't expect to be the one left behind emotionally. There was a long pause. I didn't plan to say this, Mark said finally, but I should be honest with you. I've felt drawn to you since the first day we met. My chest tightened. I wasn't shocked. I had felt it too. What unsettled me was hearing it out loud. Mark, I started. I'm not trying to complicate things, he continued. I just don't want to pretend I'm only here because of the mail. Silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was charged, heavy with things neither of us had said yet. I have a boyfriend, I said, more to remind myself than him. I know, he replied. And I'm not asking you to betray him. But that word, betray, echoed in my mind. We didn't touch. We didn't move closer. But emotionally, I felt myself leaning toward him in a way I hadn't leaned toward Ryan in months. My phone buzzed on the table between us. Ryan, you free tonight? The timing felt cruel. I stared at the screen, then looked at Mark. He didn't try to read the message. He didn't ask. He just waited. Yeah, I typed. Then deleted it. Then wrote again. Me, actually, I'm busy. Talk tomorrow. The moment I sent it, something shifted inside me. It wasn't relief. It wasn't excitement either. It was choice. Mark exhaled softly, as if he already knew what I had done without seeing it. You don't have to do this, he said. I know, I replied. That's what scares me. We sat closer now, not touching, but aware of each other's presence in a way that felt intimate without being physical. I could hear his breathing. I could feel the tension in my own body, the conflict between guilt and desire. I don't want to be the reason you hurt someone, Mark said, and I don't want to keep lying to myself, I replied. Our eyes met. There was no kiss. No dramatic gesture. But emotionally, the line had already been crossed. That my phone buzzed again. This time, Ryan was calling. That I looked at the screen, then at Mark. "Are you going to answer?" he asked. That I hesitated, then I shook my head and silenced the call. The room felt impossibly quiet after that. Not peaceful. Just honest. Mark stood up slowly. "I should go." "Yeah," I said, even though I didn't want him to. At the door, he turned back to me. "For what it's worth," he said, "this already means something. Whether we want it to or not." After he left, I sat alone on my bed, staring at my phone. 2 missed calls from Ryan. No messages from Mark. That's when it hit me that I hadn't touched Mark. I hadn't said I loved him. I hadn't done anything that would look like cheating from the outside, but I had chosen him emotionally, and somehow, that felt like the deeper betrayal. After that night, everything felt suspended. Not broken, not resolved, just hovering in a space where nothing was stable anymore. Ryan kept calling. Mark didn't. And I existed somewhere in between, replaying every decision I had made and every word I had left unsaid. That I barely slept. My thoughts looped endlessly. "You haven't done anything wrong. You've already done something wrong. You're just confused. You're lying to yourself." The contradictions were exhausting. What unsettled me most wasn't guilt, it was clarity. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I felt. I just didn't know what to do with it. 2 days later, Ryan showed up. That I opened the door and froze. He stood there with a small bag over his shoulder, eyes tired but hopeful. "I wanted to surprise you," he said. "You've been distant. I thought maybe seeing you would help." The word help made my stomach twist. "Ryan, you should have told me." "I tried calling," he replied. "You didn't answer." We stood in silence, the emotional distance between us suddenly physical, visible in the narrow space of my apartment. Inside, everything felt wrong. His presence, once comforting, now felt unfamiliar. Not because I didn't care about him, but because I no longer felt with him. We sat on the couch, close but not touching. "You okay?" he asked. That I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I had loved, the man who used to know my moods, my fears, my silences. "I don't think I am," I said. His expression shifted. "What does that mean?" "It means I've been pretending everything is